And I have to ask as well, with this album, with you sort of embracing disco, in the past you have done studio sessions with Nile Rodgers. Are we going to hear any of this on the album?
That's for me to know and everyone else to find out, I think. But yeah, no, maybe. I'm gonna say maybe.
Hi, I'm Hannah from NME, and today I'm joined by Sam, aka SG Lewis, for the latest in our In Conversation series. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Very well, thank you. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good. There's not too much going on today. I'm fiddling with album mixes, which is really gonna annoy the label, I think, considering I've handed it in quite a while ago. But they'll probably just say no. But we'll see. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good otherwise.
Doing a Kanye and going back over and over and over.
That's the problem. Like Kanye's kind of like blown the lid on this whole like an album's never handed in concept. So for any perfectionist, it's like there's an opportunity to change it at any given stage. So I think that's kind of dangerous, but especially for me. But yeah, it's maybe not a good thing.
And last time we spoke, it was last summer on a Ferris wheel at a festival abroad.
Right, yeah. Of course.
Feels like very, very different time. How has your socially distanced summer been? What have you been filling it with?
So I was kind of fortunate enough to have an album to focus on. So I'd written everything. So the kind of writing process of like studio hopping and sessions had finished. And then I just had this kind of gigantic task of like the actual finishing production. And it's a part of the process that I kind of hate. But like, it's a real like just fiddly process. So that really occupied a massive amount of time. And a lot of the time that people were kind of, getting into new hobbies and stuff, I was just like head into the album. But I definitely had a moment where I handed in the album and then I was like, what do I do next? And I just didn't know what to do with myself. I felt a bit lost for a few weeks, but I've just been kind of trying to use the time to like get into exercise, read a lot, and just like try and enjoy the downtime as much as possible.
Have you found yourself sort of immediately working on new music, or was it time to just have like a few weeks off away from being in the studio?
I told myself, I was like, I handed in the album and I said to my manager, I was like, I do not want to see a project file or a keyboard for a couple of months. And he was like, yeah, fine, like I get it. And then about a week and a half later, I was like, oh, I'm bored. So it's like, this is, especially right now, this is like the only thing I really have to do. So then I immediately kind of started fiddling and really just diving in from like a technical aspect. So like once I kind of finish a project, I like to go and learn something new to kind of inspire new like processes and new sounds so that you're not just like repeating yourself. So it's been kind of, I'm in that like education phase again where I'm just like absorbing things and watching like hours and hours and hours of like YouTube, just streams of people producing stuff. So yeah, I'm kind of in that like nerdy phase right now.
Kind of touching on that, it has just been announced that your debut album at Times is coming out next year. Mm-hmm. So you said for each album you kind of go into that learning phase. What was the learning phase for this one?
So this one was really, I think there was a huge study of disco music really, and I really spent a lot of time reading about the birth of disco in the 70s in New York with like the Loft and David Mancuso, and then that was kind of from like a hobbyist angle. That was just like something I was curious about because it's like an amazing story, and then I sort of like started to really, I've always loved disco, but I really started to grow my collection of disco records, and then I started to kind of just investigate into those processes, like how did they process the drums, like, and what bass sounds they're using, and then kind of then stemming into some 80s stuff as well. And that was just like such a fun period of music to kind of study, learn about, and kind of then also just learn some techniques from. So that was kind of the main educational bit of last album of Times.
When you were doing that, did you ever anticipate that would kind of be the overwhelming influence of the album, or was it just at that time you're like, this is super interesting?
I think I kind of knew that it would, because all the parties that I've been going to, you kind of over the years you kind of watch the music trends change in like underground electronic music and records people are playing, and like, so for instance, like in 2012 most DJs weren't playing disco music, but then from kind of 2014, 15 onwards, you just saw this real resurgence of some of my favorite DJs just like selecting disco records over house records or over like garage records. And I think that, so then it was just like a natural progression. And I think like there's definitely something to be said about, I feel like sometimes everyone's ears are on the same cycles in a way. And it's like, all of a sudden disco starts sounding good to one person, but it also starts sounding good to everyone. And then who knows, in like a couple of years time, or, 3-4 years time, maybe everyone might feel that sounds tired. So I just kind of, I think from the amount of time I'd spent in clubs and at festivals, just watching DJs, I think I knew that disco was going to have an influence on the album, definitely.
With the announcement of the album, you've just released your new single, Feed the Fire, and it is a belter. When did you start working on this one?
Thank you. So actually, I made the instrumental by myself. Actually, the day that me and Sophie Cook wrote Hallucinate, the Dua Lipa song. So it was in the same room, but I was just in the room by myself later after we'd finished that song. And then I just kind of started the instrumental from that. And then it kind of came together in pieces, as like a lot of the things I do. Once I had that instrumental, I think it was then next year, Matt from Jamiroquai, who plays keys, I went to his house and we messed with a bunch of stuff in those 2 days, but he just added that synth line at the end because I was talking about Jamiroquai records like Little L with him, and we kind of did something similar to that at the end. And then I took that instrumental to LA, and then I met Lucky Day, and we kind of then recorded the vocals there, and that was like the first time we met. And then so it kind of came together in pieces, but it took like a year, I'd say, from like starting the beat to then having the end product. So yeah.
With that, kind of the way you got in touch with Lucky Day, is that how it kind of naturally works when you collaborate with someone? Do you do the sliding into DMs to be like, oh, do you fancy working together, or does it change each time?
Absolutely. I'll shamelessly like slide in someone's DMs 100%. But I've kind of been lucky in the last like year or two in that like more of those people that I hit up have like heard something that I've done, and it's not everyone, it's only some people, but even having some people familiar with like something that you've done means that there's more opportunity for there to be like mutual appreciation. So it makes it a lot easier if you kind of hit someone up and they have already been enjoying something you've done, and then there's like that kind of back and forth, and that kind of makes it easy. But yeah, I guess like there's never any like shame in kind of just being upfront and being like, it's like I think first and foremost I'm a fan of music before I'm even like a creator, so I just kind of try and tell people if I'm feeling something, I guess.
Who is, you might not want to answer this question, but who is like the biggest person you've like just slid into DMs being like, hiya, do you fancy?
Let me think. Sometimes if I'm like drunk at a festival and I've just seen someone I'm completely in love, I'll just like, sometimes you send messages and I'll never get seen. I'm pretty sure I've done one to Bon Iver being just like, I think it was more of just a, I love you, please like never stop making music kind of thing, rather than like a, let's collab one, but yeah.
And kind of going on to the album now, how long has this been cooking? How long have you been working on it?
I guess about a year and a half. It was really as soon as I finished the kind of trilogy that I did, Dust, Dark and Dawn, it was kind of straight into it. It was, and then, so I guess we're talking like a year and a half really, or even nearly 2 by the time it's done. But it just, I always, I thought that I'd had this album done in 6 months when I started it. I had such a clear vision of what it was. I was just like, right. And a lot of it did happen pretty quickly. But then I'd never finished a full-length project before, and I kind of underestimated the task at hand of like, creating an album and balancing it and kind of just making it work as like a whole project and as an album rather than just like a bunch of songs. So it definitely took a little bit longer, but I think I learned a lot about the music creation process in that. So yeah, I think it took about a year and a half.
And I was going to ask, do you consider this your debut album? Because I know when Dusk, Dark and Dawn came out, they kind of can be pieced together into something longer. And yeah, do you consider this the debut?
I do, actually, because because when I announced Dusk, Dark and Dawn, I was like, this is my debut album. And I think that, I felt like the fans wanted an album. And I think I consider it as like a project, Dusk, Dark and Dawn. But it is an album in 3 parts, which I think is different. This is the first time I feel I've made like a traditional full-length album. So in many ways, yeah, it does feel like a debut.
Having that at the back of your mind, did it change the way you worked on it at all?
Yeah, there's definitely like a subconscious pressure of you only get to do your first album once, and it was just the fact that it would exist as like one album and you'd be able to hold it physically and kind of I think it's just a lot more committed than EPs. I think with EPs is kind of, the vision isn't so committed. It's kind of giving people a taster of like where your mind is at. And I've always been quite reactionary with music. I've always put stuff out and been like, oh, that feels good, I'm going to do some more of that. And oh, that doesn't feel so good, I'm not going to do that. Whereas with an album, you just have to commit to the vision and be like, this is it. And like, no one else can change my mind on it in that process. So you definitely face a lot of self-doubt in that process. But I think that just to have finally done it feels really good, because I was starting to think I would never kind of complete a full record.
And you said you had sort of a clear vision for it. What was that vision? Were there musical touchstones at all? Like times you wanted to evoke?
It's hard to describe it. It was really just like a feeling. I think that I was seeing music being performed or DJs playing music in these environments and there's just certain times when you go and see people play music and there's just like a certain euphoria in the air, and there's like a energy, and it's very celebratory. It's very like euphoric in that feeling. And it's just like, it just became this thing that I just became obsessed with. And I think that like, as much as the album's inspired by disco, it's not strictly a disco album, but the thing that I was fascinated by about disco was this kind of the euphoria in disco. There's so much energy in it, in like such a explosive, like just emotive way. So I think I just knew how the music was meant to feel. I didn't necessarily know exactly how it's going to sound or like the references, but I just knew what feeling it had to convey.
And something you did on your last project, the EPs Dusk, Dark and Dawn, was you sang on your own tracks. Are we going to hear more of this?
Yes, definitely. I think I'm singing about half the record, maybe just under. So, I mean, Chemicals was just the first track we put out quite a while ago now, because we sort of drip fed it, I guess. But that was my vocals in that one. And then the next single I'm singing on as well, which I'm not sure whether I was going to say that or not. But yeah, definitely. I think that I think we discussed this last time, how like, singing on records I will always be a producer, and I always approach things from the side of production. But so for that reason, singing is kind of the least comfortable thing I can do on a record, and it's the most outside of my comfort zone. And for that reason, I kind of enjoy the challenge a lot. So with this record, I was like, I really want to sing more, and it's kind of the most I've ever sang on a record. And again, I've enjoyed it so much that like, who's to say that in the future I might not do a project where I'm singing everything. I don't know. But then I love collaborating as well. So it's really, I don't know. I guess we'll see.
And obviously it's going to be a while before performing goes back to normal. But how do you imagine you'll perform it? Do you think you'll be singing live? Is that something you've done before?
Yeah. So I've been singing live on tour for like the last couple of tours we did. I was like doing the songs that I sang on and performing them live and singing them. And it was really just like it was a slow learning curve. It's from like the first time I ever did it, being on stage and just being like, oh my God, like this is the scariest thing I've ever done, to then getting comfortable with it, getting better at it. And the more you sing, the better at singing you get. It's going to be harder to tour live, because when we were touring live before, touring live is a lot more expensive than DJing, right? So it's like you have to bring a crew, band, you got to pay for hotels, flights, stuff. So, and I think that the first thing that will start to come back will be smaller cap venues and kind of, I think DJ parties need less people involved to make them run. So you're not putting a crew at risk. Like I can go and DJ by myself without like any crew. I can just turn up and put the USBs in. So, you know, you're not like responsible for a crew's health and safety. And so I don't know. I've thought about it a lot, and I pray that that live touring does come back in the same way, because it's an incredible thing to perform that music live and to feel that two-way connection with a crowd. But I think the first things will kind of be DJ focused, just because it's easier to pull off and it's less people involved.
And I have to ask as well, with this album, with you sort of embracing disco, in the past you have done studio sessions with Nile Rodgers. Are we going to hear any of this on the album?
That's for me to know and everyone else to find out, I think. But yeah, no, maybe. I'm gonna say maybe.
I'll probe more subtly. What was it like when you were in the studio with him? Because those sessions were a couple of years ago now, weren't they?
Right. So I've been in the studio a couple of times with Nile now, and it's very surreal. It's very, you know, like when you're in a room with someone like that, you know, he's a legend. There's no other way about it, and he has such a powerful artistic identity that anything he's involved in just immediately has his stamp. And it's not only his guitar playing, it's his ear for melodies and for where moments should happen in a song. And, you know, that's up there with the top 5 best moments of my life, was kind of watching Nile Rodgers just rip guitar on something that I'd kind of created. And it was just, I'm such a huge Nile Rodgers fan and Chic fan. So it's, yeah, I don't think, that will never get normal, you know. It's incredible and it's a beautiful thing to see. And and he's such a champion of of new artists and new music. So I'm just like super grateful for the opportunity, really. And it's also one of the first things that I've done where all my family, you know, even my grandparents and my parents, like everyone's just like, Nile Rodgers, you know. It's like, cause, you know, some of my like family wouldn't be so excited about, you know, I don't know, someone that's new and hot, but not. Nile Rodgers has been like making hits and just creating music for decades. So, you know, it's just insane. I don't think I'll ever get over that.
Did he offer you any advice, or just being in the studio with him, did you learn anything?
He tells amazing stories. So like advice, it's not even necessarily advice where he'll like explicitly say, don't do this or do this, but he just tells stories. Like he has stories of him and like Bowie, just like, or stories about Studio 54, and you kind of just like, you just learn things by just listening to him talk. But I think that he, you know, one thing I've definitely learned from him is that like, despite all this success and everything, he's not in the room trying to create hits, or he's not trying to manufacture any moment. He's just following his gut, and he's just like doing what feels good to him in the studio. And I think that that's important for any musician.
And moving on to other people you've worked with, Impact has come out with Robin and Channel Tres. Absolutely massive. How did that all come about?
Well, I'm such a Robin fan, and me and Channel have known each other a while. So it started with me and Teed, Orlando, who's totally not in the Extinct Dinosaurs, another producer. He's a very good friend of mine. We just make music together all the time. We started the instrumental for Impact at his house in LA. So then Channel went on tour with Robin and was supporting. So they met on tour, and they sort of formed a connection and really had an appreciation for each other's music. And then me and Channel were hanging out in the studio, and I played him the Impact instrumental, and he was like, oh, this is crazy. So he jumped on it, and we sort of started drinking as we started working. So by the time we got to the chorus, we were like drunk, and we were just like dancing around the room. And we were like so into what he'd already done that we kind of left the studio without a chorus. We were just like, right, let's go out. So then the song had no chorus. So we woke up the next day, and I was like, oh, like, what do we do? What should we write one? Should we try to write one? And we were like, And then we were like, maybe it would be cool to send it to someone. And we were like, you know, if there was anyone in the world who we could send this to and get on the chorus, who would it be? And the answer was Robin. So we sent it over, and she just was like really into it, and she just wrote this incredible chorus, and kind of it was then like kind of finished in lockdown, which is really strange. But you know, in terms of not being able to like be in the studio together and stuff, but Robin's process and like just watching her work, even in terms of just like her attention to detail and stuff, was just like incredible. And I'm just like so proud of that record.
Was Robin sort of like a musical hero? Because she's obviously like the queen of the dance floor and the sad banger. Was she kind of a musical hero to you?
Definitely. I think that Robin crosses, one thing that Robin does so beautifully is she crosses underground electronic music and pop worlds just like fluidly, you know. It's like she does her like DJ sets, like her Club Domo thing, and the records she plays there and the people she chooses to remix her records, you can tell that she's like an electronic music head, you know. She really like lives and breathes this. But then her music is also like, you know, she has had hugely successful pop hits, and I love pop music and I love electronic music. And so for that reason, she's like just a huge inspiration in terms of being able to combine those things in such a perfect way. But she's, yeah, I listen to Robin every week, you know, like her albums are just incredible.
And aside from working on your album, you've also been busy this year with kind of collaborations. Firstly, Hallucinate from Dua Lipa's album, Future Nostalgia. How did that collaboration start?
Well, my almost like writing family, she's like musical sister is a writer called Sophie Cook, or her artist name is Frances. She also has like released albums herself, and I think she's been working on one because she kind of like stopped doing the artist thing for a little bit, but she's like about to kind of do some music again. But we've written together, we went to uni together, and she's like just one of the most incredible writers on the planet. Anyway, we write together all the time, and we were just in a studio, and we started kind of what would become Hallucinate, and we didn't fully finish it. We just kind of had it, parts of it, and it got played to Dua's team, and then Dua heard it and she was really into it. So then we got in the studio with Dua and we all finished it together, and Dua just like, the things that Dua added just kind of took it to another level, and the way that she performs as well, her voice is just so kind of unique and at this point iconic that it kind of just like, it just took the song to another level. So, and it happened so quickly. It was just like so easy. It was kind of just like bang, and then it was done. And all of a sudden, and then we kind of, Stuart Price was doing some ad prod across the album, so it got sent to Stuart Price, and he just added the things he added on the top were just like, it was so interesting to hear that difference, because in my head I was like, oh, the song's finished, but to see what can be added when you think a song is finished, that was just like awesome to see. So Stuart just like added such value to that record. But and then it was on the album. It's very surreal to kind of see it go out and hear it get played on radio and stuff.
Is this the first time you've worked with her and her team?
So I've known Dua ages, but it's the first time we've kind of I did a remix for her actually a couple of years ago. I remixed New Rules, but apart from that, we hadn't written together or anything. But we've been friends for a couple of years, and we've always had like a mutual appreciation of each other's music. So yeah, I think it was just kind of the right moment, I guess.
This might be a tricky one, but do you prefer working on your own stuff or kind of producing and writing for other people?
They're so different, and anytime I do too much of one, I start craving the other, because writing for other people is so much fun because you aren't as accountable for the decisions musically. So you can like do things in the music that you might not necessarily want to do for your own project, you know, for various reasons, for like the sound you want to create and stuff. So you get to wear different hats and different outfits, which is just like, can be so much fun. You know, you can wake up one day and be like, I want to make a Latin banger, or I want to do some like 80s like electro stuff or whatever. You can just do what you want. Whereas like with your own stuff, you're accountable for every decision, and creatively, you know, it has to be perfect. And that can be, you know, so creatively rewarding, but it can also be extremely tiring because you can overthink everything, and it can just be a really like slow, painful process. But anytime I'm doing too much of one, I always end up craving the other.
Do you ever have a situation where you've like worked on a song with somebody and you're like, oh, I wish I'd kept that one?
No, actually, actually. I've just like, I'm quite savage with like, not savage, but if I want a song for mine, I'll make it pretty clear. I think there's never been one where I've been like, oh, I wanted that one. Like, I think I have a pretty clear idea of like what works for my project and what doesn't. And I think that I've always just been able to identify that. And, you know, as soon as I know that I want the song, I'm just like, yeah, I kind of ring fence the song. But no, not yet, no.
And I have to ask about experience with Victoria Monet and Khalid, which is again a massive song you've had a hand in this year. Been very busy. How did you get introduced to those two?
So I've known Khalid for like years. It was like before he even like blew up. He came to London and we met at a studio, and it was just, we like followed each other on SoundCloud, and we met at a studio. We messed around with some ideas, and like nothing really came of it. Like, but we kind of remained friends, and he came to my show at Coco at the time. There's actually like photos of us at the show and stuff. But this is like 5 years ago, maybe 5 or 6. Anyway, so then Khalid obviously blows up and becomes like, you know, such a huge artist. But he's always, you know, we've always just kept in contact and spoken on like DMs and stuff, and he's super cool. So then I was in LA, and it was Grammy week, and Victoria Monet, I know Rochelle, her manager, really well. We've known each other years, and we've been meaning to write together. So I was over in LA writing, and we organized a session. So basically, because it was Grammy week, Victoria Monet was up for Thank You Next, which she'd written on, and it was like up for a bunch of Grammys. So she had all these kind of Grammy brunches and things to go to. So I had her in the studio for like under an hour, and we'd never met before. So she literally came in, it was like, hey, how's it going? And I didn't have any beats ready to go, but we just jumped in straight away. Like the beat was built from scratch. Within like 15 minutes, we kind of had like a vibe going, and then she just got on the mic, started singing, and like a lot of the vocals are like the scratch vocals that she did like straight away in the room, like the first takes and stuff. And it was just like a vibe, and it happened so quickly that we didn't even realize its potential until we kind of listened back to it months later, because it just happened so quickly. And then, but the song didn't have a second verse. So she sent it to Khalid, and they've been meaning to collaborate for a while. And then like he just loved the song and delivered the verse. And then all of a sudden it happened so quickly in terms of like Khalid being on the song, and it was like out a week later. I was just like, whoa, I didn't even have time to think about it. But I'm so happy about it turned out. And it's been such a, I think a lot of people, it's been like a one that people just enjoyed because it's so happy as a song and kind of celebratory. And I've just had like a lot of nice messages about that song over the summer and stuff.
And finally, looking to the future in this new sort of new normal of world, now the album is done. I mean, I know you're doing the Kanye twiddling on it, but
they won't let me.
What else have you got planned?
What do I have planned? It's really, like I said, I tried to make some other plans. I was like, I'm going to travel, I'm going to do this. And then I realized I can't do any of that. So, you know, it's more music. This is back to this. So I thought that it would take longer for me to find my feet in a new project. But I think that before I know it, I'll kind of be in the thick of something else. I really want to collaborate with more. I want to write for more pop artists and stuff as well. I've really enjoyed that, and I think like I've enjoyed putting some of my sound into some, you know, more pop leaning productions like Hallucinate and stuff, and I just kind of want to explore that a bit more. And I think that I've learned so much from working on those songs that I kind of want to continue to learn. So I just think people can expect a lot more music, really. I'm not really going to disappear anywhere to go make an album, so it's just going to be lots more tunes, really.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Looking forward to hearing the full album, and yeah,
thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, nice to see you, and thanks for all the great questions.